What's poppin'? Brand new whip, just hopped in. I got options. I can pass that bitch like Stockton. Just joshing. I'm spending this holiday locked in. My body got rid of them toxins. Sports in the top 10.
Hanna, thanks for joining me. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. I just got off the phone with a Gen Z consulting firm this morning trying to educate me on Generation Z. Little did they know I have you on the call right now, but also have 3 Generation Z representatives at my house, all pandemic. Thanks for joining the Do Work podcast. I'm so stoked to have you on.
Yeah, I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah. So give me the quick hit on Hanna.
Oh gosh. Okay. Well, I guess my elevator pitch would be I'm a visual storyteller, an Ethiopian US American visual storyteller, a lover of books, mangoes and sunsets. Catch me physically chasing sunsets almost every night. And yeah, at its core, I'm just a storyteller, and that's who I am as a person who I've always been.
Awesome. So my son, Shane, I went to him and said, listen, I've got to bring some new blood into my new podcast. And you're the first first guest, which I'm very grateful for. And so you're at UNC-Chapel Hill and you're graduating in the spring, correct?
That is correct. Yeah.
So tell me about your job hunt so far. What's it looking like? How's it going?
Oh gosh, I literally just applied to my first job this week. It was very terrifying, but yeah, it's been going. I've been looking for places that kind of have similar mission statements in terms of telling stories for change and working to bring light different issues and bring communities into the limelight that probably have been ignored by media. And that's been a journey in of itself, and I'm still job searching, still looking to see what there is out there.
So listen, obviously, for young people or really anybody, it's super difficult to find a job, but in particular for, coming out of school now, what's been your main tactic?
I've been looking at people who are doing the kind of work that I want to do. I've been looking at, I guess, the greats within photojournalism, and seeing their path that they took. And usually it's a very non-traditional route, but there are also a lot of people who do traditional routes of newspaper and then go to a big company. But that's been my main tactic because it's very hard for me, especially as a first-generation college student and growing up here in the US, being the oldest child. I've had to kind of look at other people as guidance and figure out, what path I can take. And I've been learning that it's the path that you want to make. So the main things is just been looking at what other people have been doing and then kind of seeing what I can do within the constraints of COVID and the time that we're in right now.
Yeah. So listen, obviously I've done some homework on you and, you've done some awesome things. So you are a photographer, number one. You can write, number two. And by the way, I've read some of the stuff on your website just this morning, and it's pretty dope. I'm very, very enthusiastic to see anyone that could write. Now, I get it. You're at the Hussman School of Journalism. It's top rated. It's awesome. And I know a lot of people that have come out of there have gone on to do amazing things. But we're looking at your website. So if you want to know more about Hanna, definitely check out the website here. It's I think it's hannawondphoto.com. But tell us about your latest project, Roots. I really want to get into this and find out what you're up to.
Yeah, so Roots, as it says, it's a personal project that I launched officially in 2019, but unofficially had been working on and starting in 2018. But it explores the Ethiopian and Eritrean diaspora around the world. So I am Ethiopian, and I've grown up around my community in Charlotte, as well as other immigrant communities as well, and have been, kind of exploring my personal identity through them and through these pockets that we've created around this the country. And especially, I think this is something that a lot of people who kind of balance dual identities experience. It's we're not fully US American and we're not fully Ethiopian or wherever you're from. So it's like, how do you, discover who you are? So this project kind of came out of that. It was just meeting other people around the world who share the same roots as me. And it officially launched when I went to Italy in 2019. And that came out of one night in 2018. I was reading a BuzzFeed article, of all things. I was scrolling through the app and came across this article that had a headline of "Inside the country where you can buy a black man for $400." And I would hope that would make anybody stop and read. So I did. And I was just heartbroken by what I read, and saw that there are Ethiopians and Eritreans who also were involved in terms of being used within the modern day slave trade out of Libya into Italy. And I was like, I had to go. And so I managed to convince my school to send me over in the summer, and spent some time meeting a lot of people. That's Yamane. I actually just talked to him 2 days ago on the phone. He updated me about his whole situation. And yeah, connected with people in Italy and Rome. And that's where this project came out of. I was like, why stop here? Why not keep traveling around the world and track the diaspora down and see how we've been building communities away from home, and what that's been looking like. So that's been my recent project that I hope to work on throughout my lifetime.
So for people that don't know, diaspora for like in a nutshell is what?
It's defined as people who have left or have been forced to leave, or some situation has made them leave their motherland or their mother country, and they've since spread around the world in different places and communities.
So you've been to some cool spots, and sounds like you made it pre-pandemic. So post-pandemic, or whatever that means. Like, obviously it's a different zone. Where do you want to go? Where do you want to be? Do you have an idea?
Yeah, since I returned from Italy, I have wanted to go back just because there's just a lot more work to do there and stories to tell. But one place I really do want to go, or places, is Israel and Palestine, and then Lebanon and Saudi Arabia. What's happening in Israel and Palestine is there's a lot of discrimination against Ethiopian and Eritrean Jews. So I want to go there and tell some stories. And then what's happening throughout the Middle East is the kafala system, which is basically what some people call modern day enslavement system. So those are the places that I would like to go, and where I plan to go this coming summer when I graduated. But of course, with COVID now, the plan's kind of to stay at home and then maybe see if I can leave the country in 2022. But those are the abroad international places that I would like to go, and to continue telling the stories of my people, and work on this project.
I love it. I love that you've connected your passion so specifically to your, your career aspirations versus, like wanting to just be an accountant or whatever. Not that that's not super sexy, by the way.
No.
Obviously, who knows? But so listen, I definitely want to talk about you and what you're going to bring to the table for employers. I've been working at LinkedIn for a while, almost 11 years, so I have somewhat of a network. And I shot some notes out to people that I know and people that I don't know, frankly, at places like New York Times, National Geographic. But I don't know, maybe you're selling yourself a little bit short. Tell me in a nutshell what you're bringing to the table for employers.
Yeah. Fill in the job interview right now. Yeah, I think
you're not, though. You're it's just me and you talking. So I think, but I do think that it's interesting if you have your pitch ready, and maybe you don't. That's fine.
Yeah. One thing I know about myself that's been a characteristic, I think, that's been brought onto my life by my mom and the community that I grew up in, is being guided by this need for other people to care. And it's so funny because my mom will always be she'll say, Hanna, you care too much. You're just always here, and thinking about everything that's happening in the world. You care too much. And I was like, well, I learned it from you. I picked it up from you. Because she was that person who would always be there for people, even when we had nothing growing up, because she raised me as a single mom. And so I've always been guided by this need to care and been passionate about it. I mean, that's what drew me across the sea to Italy, and to other places around the world. And so that's something that I know that I can bring to places, and that I have brought to different teams and projects that I've worked on, is, caring so much and being intentional and trying to cultivate that in other people, because I think ultimately what the world needs more of is empathy, and I think that's what visual storytelling can bring, and that's why I love the medium. I've done different journalistic mediums, and visual storytelling is my favorite because there's something about seeing an image or a couple shots of B-roll that can really draw people in, and that's something that I know that I've been passionate about, and I can say that I've done is do my best to do my part in doing that for the world. And so that is something I know for sure that I can bring to the table.
So, and I think you have a lot to bring to the table. I naturally have to look at your LinkedIn profile, and I'm taking a good scan here. You've been pretty busy, so you're doing a lot of photography. Of course, you're getting the photojournalism degree from a pretty prestigious school. And I don't know if prestigious is what I want to say. It's like people have really good outcomes coming out of that school, and they go on to do pretty interesting stuff. So out of all the stuff you've done in terms of like skills that you're bringing to the table, which is really comprehensive, what type of company do you want to work for? Like, what kind of what does it look like culturally, or do you get excited by tech, for example? And by the way, a lot of people, that are your age, they're not really that excited about tech. So, and I'm not putting words in your mouth, but like when you think about the types of companies, what they feel like and how they act, both socially, from a social impact perspective and a cultural perspective, like company culture, what would draw you into a company?
Yeah, I think, or I know with the company, I want to be with a group of people who are, again, guided with that need and want for people to care and truly are passionate about what they do. And that for me is storytelling and telling people's story. It may seem wild to other people when they hear what photojournalists do, is we live sometimes with our story partners. We are actively part of their lives or in their lives. And that's something that isn't common in a lot of job fields. It's not common to go and spend weeks and months at a time with a group of people or one person that you're doing a story on. And so I want to be a part of a community that really dedicates their life or parts of their life to other people, and to tell their stories, and are guided again by that want for the world to care, and not necessarily guided by profit, or monetary compensation in some way. Yes, that's unfortunately necessary to cover the basics of rent and just like a standard of living, but I just really want to be with a group of people who are awake every night because they're thinking about something that's happening, or they're having these great conversations about what can we do to bring this story to light and stuff. Like, that's the type of people who I think I've surrounded myself with in my life, and who I've studied alongside with at the Hussman School, and worked alongside with in different companies and organizations. And that's the type of people who I want to spend the rest of my life being around.
I love it. I think that's pretty clear cut. I think that's an amazing sort of, philosophy to take into the world. And, I can kind of underscore what you're saying about getting paid. I mean, everyone I talk to that's, in college or whatever, college aside, I mean, college is not the, a great equalizer maybe that everyone thinks it is or whatever. But most young people are like trying to figure out, like, how can I actually, do what people have been saying for a long time, which is like live your passion, or, connect your passion to your career. So clearly you're in a great spot to do that. You've got amazing skills. People can check that out. One of my favorite things that you've done is, or you're working on in tandem with other people, perhaps these people you're talking about, is this 21 under 20. Tell me a little bit about that. I think it's super interesting. I was kind of poking around on that as well. What's the story there?
Yeah, so this came out of a conversation I had with one of my great friends, Ruth Samuel, who's an amazing journalist and writer. But we were sitting in Panera Bread, of all places, and I was like, you know what? Like, I want to work on this project of highlighting the amazing women of color on campus, because I worked with the Daily Tar Heel, which is our independent student-run paper, and I worked with The Bridge, which is what this project ended up coming out towards, which is a publication highlighting BIPOC women identifying individuals at Duke and UNC's campus.
Mhm.
And I was like, like there are so many incredible people here in this campus, but because of the nature of being at a predominantly white institution, and just at an institution like UNC, they aren't really given the platform to share who they are and what they've done. So out of that conversation, Ruth, who was the editor-in-chief at the time, was like, yeah, let's do it. Like, let's make this work. And so I pitched a project to them. We were trying to go for like a Vogue-esque type of thing, when they do like the top top 20 and such people around the world. And we did this. We set aside a day. It was a 13-hour long shoot. We took over a classroom. Half of the equipment was broken. Things weren't working. It was a chaotic day, but we made it work. And these incredible women just, I mean, I knew most of them already, and there was a lot of people I didn't know, and just the work that they did was just so inspiring. And I remember at one point I stopped for a moment, and a lot of them had stayed because we had done it in shifts, so people were coming in and out. But a lot of them stayed midday, and I was just like, put down my camera, and I just stared at them all, and they were all meeting each other and talking, and I was like, oh my gosh, like, when else am I gonna be in a room with like these badass women? Like, what? Like, this is so awesome. So I remember snapping a picture on my phone. I was like, oh, I like want to remember this. But that's where this came out of, and it was the first 21 under 21 thing that we'd done for The Bridge. And so I'm really hoping that this will be a continual thing. So maybe next spring semester they'll work with another photographer to work on this. But this was something that's really near and dear to my heart in terms of highlighting people who are doing amazing work in communities on campus who aren't really represented, either in our media or just in general.
We should talk about your campus a little bit as well. And this is a fantastic project. By the way, my favorite stuff that you have is on masculinity defined. I thought the stuff you did on there from a visual vantage point was just insane. I was really loving up on that. But let's talk about sort of what's going on. I mean, you're departing the pattern in Chapel Hill. You're up in Charlotte now, isolating. Your school's been through a lot of interesting stuff. Like, there's definitely a lot of like pandemic highlighted weirdness, racism, guys coming on the campus with guns and not being arrested, which is illegal to do apparently, unless you're Confederate. You've been pretty active on this, I know, because I've seen your Twitter feed. How has this impacted you, sort of like the pandemic and the, what sort of a trust issue?
Yeah. Where to begin with UNC? It is an experience to attend UNC as a Black person. And historically, trust has never been there with the campus. You can look at the murder of James Cates 50 years ago. We just honored the 50-year anniversary a few weeks ago of his death. You can look at, I mean, it's there. It's all over campus. The names, it's all there. That's a whole conversation. And when the summer rolled around and we were preparing to come back to school, it wasn't surprising the actions that UNC took in terms of how they planned on addressing the pandemic, going on 60 Minutes and claiming we were going to be one of the biggest schools to open up. And we had all these things in place and this roadmap, and there was really no clear lines in the roadmap. And a lot of students, especially students of color and Black students, were on the forefront this summer working to meet and to organize and to meet with the school and the administrators to say, this is what we think and this is what we've been hearing from students, and doing unpaid labor on top of dealing with the emotional labor of being a Black person in America. And this is after George Floyd was murdered as well. So a lot of Black students and activists were carrying a lot this summer. And then UNC went ahead and opened anyway and went about the way that they did. And we had to shut down within less than a week because of everything we said would happen happened. So it was a very interesting moment because the rest of the school was like, oh my gosh, like there's no trust. Like the rest of the country was watching us. They're like, oh, like, clusterfuck was the big headline from the DTH and all these things. And for a lot of us Black students, we're like, we've known that the university doesn't care about us. Like, welcome to our club. Like, now you can see what we've been saying for decades. So it was a very interesting moment for a lot of us to be like seeing other people finally understand that UNC doesn't care. But yeah, the trust, I mean, there's been a lack of transparency from the very beginning. Even now, there's a lot going on. I've been trying to distance myself because I just gave so much in the summer, as did other people. But yeah, there's a lot going on campus, and it's yeah.
It's exhausting, right? So
Yeah.
I appreciate you sharing, that. I mean, that's a really interesting, I think it's an important and obvious sort of vantage point to discuss. Like it's, it's a lot different if, you're, you've got your blue blazer on there and you're just sailing through. So I love it. Let me ask you this. So I want to talk about sort of companies specifically. And I don't know if Shane told you, but you probably figured it out doing this podcast. I'm a little ADD, so I jump around a lot. I don't script the show. I probably should, but I don't have time. I have a day job,
Yeah, I love that.
But employers. So you mentioned National Geographic. That would be exciting. And the New York Times. Like, what would you be wanting to do at the National Geographic if you could just, create a job there?
Yeah, I mean, National Geographic does amazing work in terms of sending photojournalists to work on long-term projects, and that's something I've always loved in terms of reporting. It's something that it used to bug my editor and advisor in my high school paper, because when I used to write, I would just write so long because I was like, I need time to talk about this person or this issue. And the editor-in-chief used to say, you actually made me be an editor because I had to cut down so much. And so that still has translated into my visual work, and I'd love to spend time on a story and work on something long and have the capacity to do that. And that's something that I do like about National Geographic, as well as there are other papers across the country, not necessarily, I guess, with the same level of prestige, but still does equally amazing work that does allow the space for photojournalists to do long-term work. And so ultimately, I would love to just work with a group that, gives this space to work on stories like that, and gives people time to flesh out stories, as well as, of course, the daily news break and spot news and such. But yeah, I've been looking at New York Times, Nat Geo, Reporters for America, just different companies that, serve different needs for the community.
Perfect. Well, if anyone's watching from those companies, you've got the connectivity right here. Interview complete. I'm doing it for you, basically. And I'm not even asking you the real, basic behavioral questions or where you're going to be in 5 years, because frankly, I think there's no purpose to asking that question. What inspires you, though, Hanna?
What inspires me? This may sound like a cop-out, but everything. I am truly inspired by conversation. I mean, I'm an extrovert at heart. I'm the what's the ENFJ? It's like a campaigner.
Picking up on that.
Which has not been fun during a pandemic, but I'm inspired by everything, people and conversation. I love to read. I've got my bookshelf over here that's got like 200 plus books. Got like the world map, I've got these little reminders around the world, anything that connects me and draws me closer to understanding humanity, even though that's something that will never be achieved. But I'm just the sun setting and the birds chirping and my brother's complaining about their Zoom classes right now while they're in class, all these things. That's what inspires me, and just trying to find, I think now more than ever, we've been reminded about how unpredictable life is, and anything can happen. And so I've been truly trying to appreciate all the small things in the ordinary moments, because that is what makes us human, and that's the stuff that we look back on and that gets recorded and gets dug up 100 years later. It's like this pen that someone once used to do this, so to answer the question, I think everything, and I know everything.
I love it. What a great attitude you have. And I'm with you on the birds, by the way. My family thinks I'm insane, but I can identify like almost any bird in my little bamboo forest in the backyard here. But wonderful. So National Geographic does their and I've been getting. I don't have a subscription, but when I was young, way back, in the days of the abacus, I would get the National Geographic. It was my favorite thing because like we would have thousands of them up in the attic sitting there, like you just could go learn anything. But they have their year in pictures, right? So I'm wondering, like, do you have any? I mean, you're busy, but do you have any, year in sort of pictures coming up, or any other projects people should be aware of?
Ooh, I
Putting you on
can't
the
think of
spot a
any
little
on
bit.
the fly. I actually just wrote about a photo on my New York Times application. Actually, I was like, can you remember the one photo that, changed your life? Like the first photo you ever saw? Like, well, I can't, but I can remember the photo that, that like changed a lot for me. And it wasn't from 2020, it was from 2018.
Right.
And it's the photo of the Palestinian protester in Gaza holding the Palestinian flag, and he's shirtless and he's got a slingshot in the other photo. I don't know if you know which one I'm talking about, but
I
it
know
went
exactly what you're talking
viral.
about. Yeah.
Yeah, it was likened to French Renaissance paintings and or revolutionary paintings. I
Yeah.
think about that photo a lot, and I think about it a lot because like photos like that just make you stop, and you're just like, what? You just want to know, like, what are all the events that led this person to be there doing this? Like, what is this person's name? Like, what are they passionate about? Why do they all these things? And I think those are the most effective types of photos. And so, I mean, we can think of a lot of photos from the summer. I think off the top of my head, I can think of Mark Clennon because we just had him as a photo night speaker at UNC.
Nice.
Mark Clennon is he's an amazing photographer. Please check him out. But he has a photo of a black man with the Black Power fist in front of the Trump Tower. And the man, it's like taken from the behind. So the man's shirtless and you can see him wearing his durag. And that went everywhere as well. And just looking at work like that, like these are photos that are just simple but speak so much and speak volumes. And so those are the two that I can think of on the top of my head that are just like, wow, it makes you stop, and I think are very effective and beautiful photos.
Yeah, and thanks for accepting my Instagram request. I mean, I don't know what the protocol is. I thought it was great because now I get to see some of your pictures, especially some of the stuff during, stuff that's going to happen in Raleigh, and kind of a weird zone and everything else. So thank you for doing that.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm gonna wrap up with you, but when I talked to Shane, I said I want the most amazing, inspiring, and brilliant people that no one knows about yet. I think people already know about you, but I'm so impressed with you. I think that any company, New York Times or National Geographic, should just hire you. But like anybody would be glad to have you. You've got amazing writing skills, your attitude, and I'm just excited to talk to you. So today is a day at my work day at LinkedIn where it's an in day, so we take a day to reflect on one theme or another. Today's about gratitude. I just want to say I'm very grateful for you and for your attitude and your passion, and anything I could do to help you out to get you hired, let me know. And I guess we'll go ahead and wrap up, but I want to ask you this on behalf of the people that are younger than you, that are just starting college, or the people like my daughter who's like, should I go to college? What's your best piece of wisdom? Your best piece of wisdom for young people, sort of in that vortex of like, maybe despair or confusion or whatever. Like, what should they be thinking to as they go forward in the future?
Yeah. First off, thank you for what you said. That was so kind. And I'm very grateful for you as well for letting me be here. In terms of wisdom, oh gosh, I think just we have one life to live. And this, again, it may sound cliche, it's like what 2000s, like early 2000s, like YOLO, you only live once. um, but truly though, like this is your life. And I've been seeing these TikToks about like, at the end of the day, we're on a floating rock and like billions of people have worked to bring us to who we are and such. But whatever you want to do, go for it. And of course, there are so many things to take into account with that. But at the end of the day, it's your journey, it's your story. Go for what you want to do and be passionate about it and go full force, full send, as they say, because that's what the world needs more of. And I think we're so limited by what our cultures and societies define as success, and like these, these paths that we have to take. But no, why are we doing that? I mean, if
Yep.
that's what you want to do, go for it. Like, yeah. But I know that I love waking up every day not knowing where I'm going to go. Sometimes I'm being chased by police with the car meat, and sometimes I'm like spending time with fishers and Belize. And it's every day is unpredictable and beautiful, and that's the way I want to live my life. And that may not be a traditional definition of success, but it's what I want to do. And so I think that if you have something you want to do, go for it and be you unapologetically, because other people will be drawn to that. And that's my
I love that advice.
feel.
I will wrap up with that, but that is inspiring. You're right, Shane. We literally should make you president. And thanks, Alex and Alicia and all your people from your
Oh,
fan club who think you're amazing as well.
oh,
I'll
that's
catch
my
up.
roommate.
Yeah, you got a lot of fans for sure. I just forgot to put them up there. But listen, until next time, thank you so much. Grateful for your time, and hope you get hired soon for sure. And it's something you really want to do. Be well, my friend.
Thank you.
All right, that wraps up my first episode of the Do Work podcast. Amazing and inspiring person, Hanna, and you can check her out on LinkedIn. And I'll do a wrap up piece as well, so you have linkage to her. Be well, everybody. Wear a mask, stay safe, and talk to you soon.
One extra.
What's poppin'?
Who you?
Brand new.
Yo, hold on.